Hi, welcome back to another Guns Contractors video. I just wanted to go through today a new product that I've bought for my business, something that's familiar but is slightly different. So I thought I'd explain why I've decided to buy or replace my Tiltrotator, because of course I had my old one for about 850 hours. Absolutely really nothing wrong with it as such, but I've made the decision to upgrade to the new EC02B, which is Engcon's kind of latest revision of the size of tiltrotator that I run, the EC02. So I run through why I decided to make the change, what the new changes are, because there's only small subtle differences, how much it cost, of course, is an important one, and also how I found it, because I've had this now for about 8 weeks. Never like to review something straight off the bat. So how have I found it, and do I think it's worth it ultimately with the new tiltrotator? Maybe you've got an EC02 currently, or maybe you're looking to buy one. Either way, let me run through what's new on the new Engcon EC02. So really, very similar product to the original EC02 that I've had 2 of now. This is now my 3rd tilt rotator, and there's a couple of small improvements which I'll run through, but really very similar to the old one. So just quickly, in terms of weight, not that we're reviewing overall tilt rotators here, but just so we're aware of specs. Top hitch, I've got a top hitch on this system, then the tilt rotator, and then your bucket. That allows me to drop this off, if you're familiar with tilt rotators. Top hitch weighs 19 kilos according to the plate. It is around that kind of number. It's definitely lighter than the old spring hitch I used to have. This new EC02B I think is slightly heavier now than the old one. This comes in at 93 kilos according to the plate, and there's a couple of reasons for why it might be heavier, because there's a little bit more metal in it now. Not much, probably 5-6 kilos heavier than it used to be, but it all adds up on a little 2.8 ton machine like this. And then my bucket, they reckon, weighs about 80 kilos, which I would probably go with. You can lump it about, but she is heavy. I do run a metre wide grader on mine, so that is something that's maybe a bit different to most. The standard width for this machine on S30 180, which is the type of hitch this runs, I think is 900. I run a metre wide one for various reasons, but yeah, I've talked about that in other videos. So the EC02B, why have I decided to upgrade my tiltrotator? Well, went round the factory, been around there, lucky enough to do around twice now, in Sweden earlier this year, and they had the new O2B, in fact these models being produced, right? So I've seen, actually there's only 2 workstations where these little things are produced for the whole world, and I've seen the guys putting them together, and yeah, nice little setup. You can't get with these, sadly, they still don't have the rotation sensors or the inbuilt tilt sensors. Can't get that. You can't get them on EC Oil. I did ask, I've been bugging them for a while. You will know though that they have the size up from this now, the 204. You can now get that with EC Oil blocks. I've seen them, tiny little things, really cool. And obviously you can get the gripper on that model, which you can't get on this. So this is probably about as full spec as an EC02 can get. You can also run these now. They do a basic where you can just run a very simple system off the hydraulics of the machine. If you have 4 hydraulic pipes going down here, or potentially 6, you can run one of these a lot cheaper than my system, which is on the DC2 control system. Anyway, you'll have to watch my other video on tilt rotators I did a few years ago when I first got these setups to understand why I went with this. But the EC02B hasn't given me any of those features. I'd love it. I would love it if I could have a little mini gripper. They're really cool. I'd love the EC Oil. I'd love all of these things, but cost, weight is the main thing really, and actually usability, because a gripper, even if they had one on here, wouldn't give me much in terms of width to grip things. So always a compromise, right? But the main thing for me that they've upgraded on this is the bottom hitch. This is a much better system, and I will take the bucket off in a sec and show you now how they look. But the old hitch was a weakness on mine. I broke it 3 or 4 times. There was a little piston inside that used to pull a plate back. It used to wedge up against this back pin. That was how it attached the bucket. And I just kept breaking the little piston. It was a known problem, and it would be covered under warranty as long as the warranty lasted, but of course warranty doesn't go forever, so they're about nearly £1,000 to replace them little rams. And if it broke with the bucket on, of course you had a bucket stuck on, it was an absolute nightmare. So that was one downside of my old unit. They've upgraded that now. That has come with sensors inside it now, so that the machine itself knows if the bucket isn't attached properly, which is just another layer of safety, I guess. No bad thing, because they do have a little blue tag on them, and yeah, this one has now an orange tag, which is round here, which sort of tells you when the bucket maybe isn't latched properly. But no bad thing as well to have a sensor in there to say, hang on a minute, your bucket's not on right. That is no bad thing. The other thing I used to struggle with was ripping these little fittings off. These are for my grab, so these are little Tema hydraulic 8 fittings. They are tiny little things, and particularly when I ran the gripper, sorry, the ripper, not the gripper, can't run a gripper. When I run the ripper, they're just not very well protected, or they weren't on the old one, and I used to snap them, and so I end up running blanked, just hydraulic blanks on here instead, take the fittings off. It's about 20 quid each or something, and saving them for when I needed the grab. Now they look to me to be a lot better. There's a lot more meat here. I think it's probably an increase for the weight, but they do look a lot more protected. Even with my ripper on, which fits exactly the same as this bucket, they look like they're going to be a lot more out of the way now. But time will tell. Let's see. When I rip one off, you will know. The other thing they've done, which is something that Neil and I were doing anyway when we were installing, or when he used to install tiltrotators on my machine, that's Neil from Nasco Digtech in the UK. The old pipe routing was really bulky here, and it used to stick out beyond the back, and you can't see it when you're in the cab. You can't see behind this turret, of course, because your view is from the front, right? So there were always these hoses, and mine had mud and marks on them and things where clearly they'd come into contact with the ground a bit. I never ripped one off, in fairness, or I did actually, but not digging trees. These things are your enemy. But yeah, I did end up breaking one, but it was my mistake. And yeah, it's just how it goes when you're handling timber and logs and things. But it was always something you had to be aware of. I think this new routing here is far superior. We've got I think they're called bulkhead fittings, aren't they? These sort of round cylindrical fittings. We've got tight 90s here. That is all a lot better to me. And they fitted, which mine had, Neil had welded a fitting onto mine to run my pipe round here. That wasn't a standard EC02 thing, and it goes over the back through here. This is how I had my old one set up. Now, strangely enough, Engcon provide this as standard. So if you had a 4-pipe, your other one would go there. Obviously mine's only on a 2-pipe system, and she goes straight into my fittings here, which is a really neat solution. So you've got one pipe one side, one the other. They've now also, one thing they've done is they've put a valve block on top here that allows a much better entry for the flow and return, because it works both ways, but the pipe to run into the tiltrotator. And it's quite a neat solution. The electrics go in here as well. My old one used to come down and sweep in here, which a little bit closer to the bucket, a little bit closer to the action. Always risky, isn't it? So I think that's an improvement. I'm unsure, there's no nice way to do this. When you've got the bucket crowded right out, this is quite a tight curve. I don't know how you could do it better. In that situation, it would be better if it's plumbed just straight. But then when you curl it round, that makes a lot of sense. So, I don't know. Hasn't been a problem so far. Hopefully it'll never be a problem. But it's just something that, it's a compromise, isn't it? How do you get that oil down to there? Unless you run it in a bigger curve and well, I don't know, you end up sort of like the other side. Maybe that works a bit better. Anyway, I think overall it's improved, and it's certainly in line now with their 204, which is the next size up. They're all very similar, 206, all designed very, very similar. So I think that works pretty well. Yeah, some small improvements really, nothing major. Let me run through what the hitch is like, and then I'll talk about how much it cost me, because that's all important, right? Right, so in the cab, everything else is as it was. Still got my hitch control down here. So I'll show you how what the new hitch looks like. Difficult to operate one-handed here, so apologies for this. Right, so what it does, and I'll show you from here, if I can bring it in a little bit closer, is the new hitch now, it brings the bucket forward into these little hooks. So I've got to press 1 to get it to start unlocking. Obviously I've got top and bottom hitch here. My top hitch is mechanical, so none of this works for me, but obviously it works on the Tiltrotator, and that is currently livened up because it knows that I've got the Tiltrotator on, so it knows that's the hitch that I need to use. So press that once, press and hold it. You see how it brings the bucket forward. Now the best thing with this is that you can do this in any position. I know some of you have to have the bucket touching on the ground and things before it'll release. I don't have that problem, so I can then put the bucket down, again trying to film and do all of this, and then release it from its little horns, and you can see that orange, there's an orange piece. If I bring it in closer, you can see that little orange piece, and also the back of the hitch here, which is obviously where the bucket would latch. So when I go to latch, press both buttons, that is how it latches in. Now, there's a few things that are massively improved in all of that, which I'll get out and show you. Firstly, these bars here, these are sprung loaded, and they basically tell it whether you do or don't have a bucket on. Now that's important because if you were to pick up a bucket, you could actually get one inside of these little horns here, so picked up and you know, actually the back pin would be resting against here, but you think the bucket's attached and it isn't. So when these are pressed in, as in you've got a bucket against them, you get a beeping noise in the cab which tells you something's not right. That's handy, it's a good safety feature. I think it's all part of Engcon's QSC hitch system, which is all approved, by the way, for the safety managers out there. But you've also still got this orange rod which tells you, you know, when the hitch is kind of forward or not, yeah, in relation to this piece of metal. Now, it works both ways round, as the other one did, but it's much better. You don't have to hold a button down anymore, like I used to have to hold a button on this, I think it's this joystick, or one of them anyway, and then I used to use my roller to release the hitch. I don't have to do any of that anymore. So I think it's a much improved hitch system, but the key is, and you can't see it in there, but the key is it's got a much bigger RAM now, all up inside of the actual unit itself. So hopefully we won't get the issue where I snap the hitch RAM anymore, which I've even done a video on before, because it used to happen about once a year. So if I'll just show you, if I put this bucket on, this is a bit difficult because I'm trying to camera and drive, so just for ease here, let's see if I can hitch a bucket up. Right, so there you go. So I've got a bucket, right? Now that bucket looks like it's on, right? But this knows it's not. So that's a really handy solution there. It just tells me that I'm not actually hitched on, even though, you know, at a glance it would appear I am. So I can quite easily unlock it, it'll then latch in, and then I can latch it back, and she should be good. The beeping will stop if it's happy. So there you go, it's happy, bucket's on. Always good, by the way, and this is a standard thing, all operators should know this, to just test your bucket on the ground. Trust me, you do not want to kill someone or hurt them, even with a small bucket like this, with one falling on your head. Never a bad thing to just make sure it's hitched. And of course with the Tiltrotator, you can actually turn it round and have a look as well to see if she's fully home. So there you go. That is basically the new quick hitch system, which I think is well worth it. Now, cost. Let's talk about cost, because none of these things are cheap, are they? So a lot of you are going to say, well, your old Tiltrotator only done 800 hours and there was nothing really wrong with it, so, you know, why not just keep running it? And I could have done that, and it was very tempting to do. There are a couple of reasons I changed. I think this is a slightly neater solution in terms of hose routing, etc. I've definitely got a better hitch solution now, and particularly when you're running quite big attachments like the forks and things that put quite a bit of potentially back pressure on the old plate that used to slide under the pin. That was what used to snap the little quick hitch ram. I think personally it used to gain a little bit of pressure, and the ram would just be slightly sort of like wobbled in the little plate as it slid in the rails, and that would put pressure on the ram. It was a tiny little ram. I mean, it's like the size of your little finger, and it would snap. Now, they're expensive to do. It's like £1,000 a go. It happened relatively regularly, and I'm looking at it thinking, well, this hitch only has to go, you know, one time out of warranty, and suddenly it's cost me £1,000, right? Which is not ideal. There's nothing you can do really about it. It is sort of what it is. Engcon have come up with a better solution. I know, really, you know, well, some people go, well, you know, they should just give you another one. It doesn't really work like that, does it, in business? People improve things over time, things get better. So I thought it's probably worth upgrading for that element alone. Now, Engcon are a good company, really, in that they will trade in your old unit and you can upgrade to a new one. So if you had some issues with your old one and you were looking at, or maybe getting it refurbed, and then you think, well, actually, how much is it going to cost me to just trade it in and get a new one? Sometimes it's a little bit less than you might think. It depends on what hitch you have and what your unit is and what the spec is, you know, grippers, no grippers, all of these things that happen with Tiltrotators. Of course, a lot of them now have got detachable grippers, so you can keep your existing gripper for your new unit. Some people, of course, go on to run Engcons for 2 or 3 machines, and you can do that. I've never done it because actually it increases the value of a machine when you go to sell it, and it was sort of worth, you know, as I've said before, I think in a video, when I sold my old 8026, it was worth selling with the Tiltrotator because it basically added like 10 grand onto the price of the machine. So people want a machine with a Tiltrotator ready to go, and that was it. A great unit, and I think it's still, well, it is still out there working away for the guy, so that's good to see. However, Engcon offered me a trade-in on this. We did a little bit of discussions while we were in Sweden. Now, that might help, of course, some of these prices. I do not get anything for free, sadly. Although the snowmobiling was free, that's always welcome, but I didn't get the unit for free. I pay my rate on these things. They give me some percentage of discount. It's a bit, it's welcome. It's nowhere near freebies though, so I pay good money for these things as well. I think they offered me about 4.5 grand for my old unit, which I'd paid, I mean, I'd have to look up the quote again from when I bought that in 2022. That's when I made this machine. So prices have gone up a little bit since then as well. I think the unit's about, well, I think the list price on them is something like 9 grand now. You probably pick one up for like 7.5, 8, something like that. Depends on the deal you've got and what you're looking to do. And of course your setup again, because this is a DC2'd Tiltrotator. It's their top end of the EC02. As I said, you can go direct mount, you can do 4 pipes, all of that, 6 pipe. There's all these solutions you can do, and you can actually get one for about 6 grand, all included fitted. Nowhere near the spec of this, mind you, but it depends what you want to do. Anyway, I digress. They gave me about 4.5 grand, I think, for my old unit, which they will take in and then offer second hand. So there is well worth keeping an eye on the Engcon website, because units do come in second hand, they refurbish them and then sell them at a reduced rate. So that unit will no doubt go on to give someone another load of life. Just be careful of the quick hitch ram. This unit then cost me about 2.5 grand, I think, to upgrade. So there was a decent discount on what a new one would be, but it's still a bit of money. I don't know. I looked at it and went, well, I think there's some big advantages in this. I've got a slightly safer solution ultimately, because the old system, it was safe enough. I never had a bucket fall off, but if you wanted to justify it on a modern site against a particularly well clued up safety guy, they would argue that there were things that a quick hitch system should have now that system didn't have. This one, I could argue it to the hilt now and know that we'll pass all modern current regs as it stands. Of course, things always change. Anyway, decided to upgrade. New unit, ordered, delivered in about 6 weeks. Neil came down, fitted, done a nice job on it. He also did a couple of bits in my iDig as well, recalibrated that. So we're all good on there. I found it a little bit different in the tilt to operate. To be honest, I think I need to play with the settings. It's a little bit slow on the tilt. Rotation is fine, really nice, but for me, the tilt, I need to, it's almost like it has a bit of resistance to wanting to tilt. And the other one used to multi-flow a little bit better, particularly when it came to tilting and rotating and things. This one almost actually speeds up the tilt when you rotate at the same time, and it's a bit inconsistent in that way. So I've got a little bit to do with it, and next time Neil is out to me, I will get him to have a play with it, because he can plug his laptop in and do a lot more than I can do even through the app that you can connect your DC2 to. So anyway, they're my things. That's what I've done, rightly or wrongly. I just thought it would be a good idea. And yeah, I've got another 2 years warranty, of course, because that's another advantage, and warranty is worth quite a bit of money with these things. So only on the Tiltrotator, mind you, because that's the only bit that's new, but the rest of it is pretty reliable. Mind you, the Tiltrotator is reliable enough, but you know what I mean. If we've got any problems with this quick hitch, we will find out, won't we? Because I seem to test them. This is the smallest unit on the biggest machine that they'll allow you to use, and so you're putting as much force as you can through it. Anyway, that's why I've upgraded my Tiltrotator. I think it was a worthwhile upgrade. Maybe not. And I would keep an eye out whenever Engcon do eventually sell. They may have already done it, of course, my old unit, because it was about 8 weeks ago or something that this was swapped out. So there you go. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next one. Thanks, guys.